Welcome to the Retirement Resource Show, the place to come and live a retirement that is meaningful, fulfilling, and fun. We believe this phase of your life is the best time of your life. It's up to you. And we've got the show to get you there. Here's your host, Beau Henderson.
It's that time again. Welcome to the Retirement Resource, the one place committed to giving good information about the things you care about when it comes to living rich in retirement. And how we define that here, rich in retirement is a retirement that is intentional, meaning on purpose, it's fulfilling, and fun. So let's jump to it. I'm here with my co-host, Amy Scruggs. Amy, I'm excited. What do we got for today? Let's cue it up.
You know, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of hot topics to talk about that are current with our financial and everything else. But this show is also about having that retirement that you've dreamed of. And so what we want to do today is really tackle some of these hot issues so it can take that stress and anxiety off. And there's less you need to worry about, and you can stay in the healthy retirement that you plan. So first off, I know the big topic is that rate increase. Beau, I know you speak a lot about this on other platforms. Let's jump in on that.
Yeah, the interest rate increase. So we saw this past week, 75 basis points, 0.75% interest rates have been increased. And why is that happening? Because, you know, we talk a lot about scary words, and I'm going to kind of include this in part of our scary words, but I know we have more. You hear interest rates increasing, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. What does it mean? Okay. Interest rates are increasing as a monetary measure or as a policy to help, as we raise interest rates, is to slow down the economy to help bring inflation back down to a mean or to a better, more manageable average, so inflation doesn't diminish our purchasing power and cause all kinds of problems that we hear about. So it's a normal part of a market cycle. Inflation's out of whack, so to speak. And that's my technical term, whack, like out of whack.
I like the whack.
So inflation's out of whack. It's too high. So raising interest rates, the job that we're hoping that it's a little tricky because they're kind of lagging indicators, but we're hoping what's going to happen is inflation's going to level off, and some reports say that maybe inflation has peaked. I hope that's true, but it'll come. But as it comes back down, then all we're doing is we're resetting more of a mean or a normal or more of a floor to down the road go up and have growth again to where we reach highs higher than it was before all this started. You know, I think, Amy, in the context, when we look at it and we're in it, it seems like it's different this time. Media would lead us to believe it's the end of the world. But if we step back and look at a 5-year chunk of time, much less a 10-year chunk of time, even broader, it's part of a normal market cycle. So as interest rates are coming out, there's a few things to know, though, as far as how it impacts your retirement. One, because interest rates rising correlate with high inflation, typically there is a negative impact on stocks or equities. But remember this, the equities or stocks in your portfolio, just because your balance is down, I had to correct somebody today earlier on a radio show, Amy, you didn't lose money because the balance is down. That is the daily price. You only lose money when you take a distribution from those accounts.
When you pull it out, when it's actually in your hands, right?
That's right. So if this is money we don't need and we can position it for later in the timeline, then you haven't lost it. And if we can position it to where it can ride out the cycle, which is how it should be positioned to start with, then it'll actually be higher and it'll be doing what it's supposed to do over time. So equities might be a little beat up right now. Okay. That could be an opportunity for additional investment. I know it doesn't feel good for the lump sums that you feel going down and feeling beat up. But the other side of that, there's a flip, right? That's a negative. It feels like our statements or our 401ks, IRAs, we may see them down 20% or more. But the other side is more fixed income, traditional income type of planning tools like savings accounts, CDs, and even with insurance companies, you're seeing better guaranteed rates now for the first time in almost a decade or over a decade, to where you're starting to see rates start to increase on some of those safe fixed income pieces that you might use for your income plan. So it might be a better time to be a saver, and you're a little beat up right now being an investor, but really you should only be investing. The true definition of investing is for longer term. All right.
You always bring such a breath of fresh air right here in the first 5 minutes into the show. I feel like our viewers right now are going, oh, okay. Okay, this makes more sense. I feel better now.
Now the answer, right? The answer is yes, truly. If you're having to take a distribution out of a 401k that's down 20%, or you shift it to your savings account, that is locking in a loss. I hope
Right.
that's not the case. I hope we just need to maybe step back, reposition the strategy a little bit for short-term income needs in the near future, the pieces that we can afford to ride out this market volatility that we're experiencing. As all these other things, inflation starts to come down and interest rates kind of levels out a little bit, it's all part of a retirement strategy. And like we talked about, these words, these things for media, and again, I know this is a medium of media, what we do here, not
Right.
this media, right? But in a lot of media, what gets the most views, the most clicks, the most listens is emotional response. And a lot of that, somebody earlier, I asked that and they said anger. And I said, that's probably number two, but I think it's fear. I think people lead with fear to elicit those clicks, views, listens, reads, whatever it is. But what that leads you to do sometimes, if that's all we're hearing and seeing, and any more media can be kind of consuming because it's everywhere.
Right.
Then if we're not careful, that could lead us to make emotional decisions that aren't best for us long term. And what's the antidote? Step back.
Right. If we're trying to have a life that's intentional and fulfilling, then we shouldn't be driven in fear in any category, especially when talking about our finances or looking at the current economy. But I know we also like to address some of the other scary things, and we've got a scary word. So let's just deflate that one for everybody as well.
All right. We have another scary word.
We have a scary word.
What you got?
Recession. There's a recession obsession.
The recession obsession. Are we in a recession? Are we not? I'll give you my answer. Nobody knows. Okay. A lot of times the definition of a recession, there's multiple things, but a lot of times we don't know until well after a recession is over. Then they declare it was actually a recession. But a couple things that are indicators or defining characteristics of a recession is 2 quarters of declining growth or GDP growth, and we've hit that. So there's one thing there that says, yeah, we're kind of close, or we're kind of in that territory. One thing that's helped holding that up, though, that and I'm kind of surprised, we have relatively good employment numbers right now. I think if the combination of the 2 quarters of growth and poor employment, I think we'd be much closer or in a recession. Now, are we there or not? We could debate that all day long, and it depends on who you ask, and it depends on the definition. And again, there's no real, very specific definition. There's indicators and things that determine that.
Sure.
And what I think will happen, right? I think we have a couple things with this market and inflation trying to pull things back. Either you're going to be amazed at this insight. Either it's going to start getting better, Amy, or it's going to get worse. Right. When it comes to this, what happened when we're in this bear market territory? What we see,
we discussed that.
In the next year and a half, 2 years, we see we either see the market correct and come back higher than it was before the bear market, or you think back 2008, 2001, it drops even further, maybe 20% or more. So the question is, what do we need to do? And here's the thing about a retirement strategy. If we're properly positioned, and if we were positioned going into this market, I mean, it blows my mind. We act surprised that the market corrected. Right. How many years of overextended market gains? It was almost 13 years. Yeah. And then it's this big surprise that we're having this major correction. But most people I've had conversations with over the years, they said, yeah, I know there's going to be a major correction coming, but when it comes, we act surprised. So all that to say, and this isn't to be, we're going to be proactive and address things the best we can. But if we're properly positioned going into this bear market, it wouldn't have changed our retirement plan.
Right.
But the problem is, for most Americans, the combination of the pandemic, the bear market, the inflation, all the things we're seeing right now, a lot of Americans are saying it has changed their retirement plans. And what that tells me is they had a lot of stuff. They'd accumulated some assets. They had some goals, but they really didn't have a retirement strategy.
Right.
So if we find,
are you noticing more of a reaction then? You're just seeing people making reactions instead of strategic planning?
That's across the board. What we see in this country is it's much more reactive planning, meaning I need to address something after something bad happens, after a market crashes, after a spouse dies. And so it's like, okay, you're like, Beau, great. You told me I messed up. No, I'm telling you it's normal. It's normal to be caught in this situation now. So what is the best thing the best thing would have been to do this planning probably 5 years ago,
Right.
and have a strategy that was based in mathematical certainty and not luck of things outside of our control. That would have been ideal. Okay. But the reality is some of us are not there. So what do? Step back from some of the scary words, from some of the emotion. Let's get clear on the income needs, the income gaps, the timeline, and let's build your strategy moving forward.
Good
The
advice.
best. Well, yeah. What is it, Amy? What we need to look this up because I reference it and I always butcher it. But it's something about when's the best time to plant a tree. I think that makes a Chinese proverb.
20 years ago.
100 years ago.
100 years ago. Yes.
And the next best time is today.
And today.
Yeah, there you go. So it's the same thing with retirement strategy. So my message is, I hope it's a positive one, is that if we wanted to retire this year and it changed our plan because the market's down, it's pretty normal, right? It's not beating anybody up. But how do we address it? We revisit and make sure, okay, how do I position myself so that I can come up with a strategy, a retirement plan, a timeline based in mathematical certainty, so that if the market's up or down, I still have my plan to be able to retire. And I have my things positioned that even if it's beat up in the market like it is now, it has a timeline of 10, 15 years plus to ride out, because this is all cycles.
Right.
It's not new. It's not different. These are normal market cycles.
Right.
So that's the message today, right? Is maybe, and maybe it's not that scary. Maybe
and it's not so scary.
Yeah. And maybe maybe it's not that you're trying to retire this year. Maybe you're wanting to retire in 5 years.
Right.
The good news is we have a little bit of a timeline, and the market will most likely, let's plant the tree today. The market will most likely be up again between now and a 5-year timeline, and we can put yourself in the best position possible moving forward. Scary words, how we demystify the fear, doubt, anxiety, worry, those emotions, those negative emotions, those emotions that feel bad that come with scary words, as we talk about them.
Right.
And we create clarity. And the only way I know when it comes to retirement planning to create clarity is to have a strategy that you understand, it makes sense, and it's specific to you.
Fantastic advice. Well, we're jumping into another big subject that I know you already speak about all the time. So this is your wheelhouse, but we really want to do a little bit deeper dive today. And it's talking about Social Security. And this is the anniversary of Social Security. August is an anniversary month for it. It's a perfect time for us to address this. But there are studies showing that nationwide, there is an uncertainty of people really understanding what's going on. Only 2 out of 5 really know when they qualify and what the best time is for their Social Security and what they qualify for. So let's talk about what's taking place, especially with the Secure Act 2.0 that's going through and maybe approving up soon. So let's discuss it.
Yeah, Social Security anniversary, and this is one of the areas I teach more than any other retirement planning topic. I teach Social Security for a couple reasons. It applies to everybody. Almost everybody gets it wrong. 96% of people do not claim the strategy that gives them the most money they're eligible for over their life expectancy.
That's an astounding number.
Yeah. 100% won as much as possible. 4% are getting it. And there's the disconnect. And the disconnect is it's complicated. There's over 500 possible ways to claim your strategy. Right.
Wow.
And a lot of times you think of 62 full retirement age, 66, 67, or maximum delayed credits at 70. There's 3, but there's over 500 possible combinations. It's complicated. Typical of things with government. It's very complex.
Right.
The legislation is like this big on it. If you're trying, and there's not an easy, accessible resource short of you reading books, going to classes, and learning what applies to you. There's not an easy place to go because most people get their information from a coworker, a neighbor, a brother-in-law. And remember, 96% of people get it wrong. So they probably didn't get it right for themselves. They're just trying to feel better and share with you what they did. But even if they did, let's assume the best. Let's assume
they're one of the 4%.
let's assume your coworker, your brother-in-law, your neighbor nailed it. They're in the 4%. Does that mean it applies to you and your household at all? Not at all. Every household has a different optimized formula. That's why you hear me say, I hate rules of thumb, right?
Right.
Any article that says, and we did a little short clip on this, and it was pulling up all these articles over my voiceover. And the article says everybody should take it at 62. There's a bunch of them. Everybody should delay till 70. There's a bunch of them. The reality is, if I'm talking to 10 households, it's somewhere between 62 and 70, but no two are most likely the same, because everybody has different puzzle pieces, different income gaps, different timelines of when they want to retire. Some of you have pensions, some of you have 401ks, some of you have $10,000 income gaps, some of you have $2,000 income gaps. All those play into what's the best thing to do with Social Security.
Wow.
So you have all this disconnect. And at the end of the day, kind of the message that I like to share is that you can't count on Social Security Administration to provide strategy specific to you and your household. They can help you with following your benefit or some forms and basic questions, but they really aren't trained or aren't really allowed to give you strategic advice. It's complicated. We already talked about that. And the third thing, and this is where I want to have an impact and make a difference in my industry of financial planning, the majority of financial advisors out there still are not addressing Social Security optimization in the retirement plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why do you feel that is?
Well, first off, it's a major disservice to the retiree, because in the U.S., Social Security is typically the largest income source in somebody's retirement plan.
Yes.
And it's usually over half of their retirement income. For a lot of people, it's almost 38%. It's all of their retirement income. Yet the financial advisor that's not addressing that, the most important source of income, again, major disservice. Why might they not be doing that? So to your question, Amy, two reasons I found. One, it's the law of awareness, right? You can't address what you don't know. So if you haven't gone through the training, or you're not in an organization that provides the training, and you don't know the rules, you can't really teach it or train it or help with that. So that's one, I don't know. The other is a little more nefarious. I love using big words there, right? So the other is a little more nefarious in that it's not addressed sometimes because there's not a compensation to address it. And even at the worst scenario, there's a conflict of interest. And just picture this, and not that this is what happens all the time, but there's potential for this. And it does happen at times. Could you imagine a scenario where it says, okay, those assets that I'm paid on to manage for you, let's keep those with me as long as possible, and go ahead and take your Social Security as soon as you could. You see potential conflict for that advice.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, it might be that person should take their Social Security at 62. I don't know. We got to get into a lot more details of the situation, but there's a potential for conflict there.
Sure.
So Social Security's not a reliable resource for specific advice. Advisors aren't helping in a lot of scenarios. Mm-hmm. It's complicated. So really the message at the end of the day is, whose responsibility is it to get it right? And you got to sit with that for a minute, because it's mine and it's yours.
You have to get it. You have to become educated.
Right. Nobody's going to do it for you.
Right.
Nobody's going to call you up and say, if you did this, it results in $80,000 more in benefit. So my advice overall is just, all you need to be an expert on is the rules that apply to you. So if you're married, let's learn the rules that apply to couples.
Right.
If you're single, we need to know how our individual benefit works. If you're divorced, what does that look like? If you're a surviving spouse, what are the rules that apply there? And if you just focus on knowing the rules to what applies to you, then you can model viable scenarios and mathematically make the best decision possible. And what I can say is, most people make the Social Security claiming decision very haphazardly, with very little thought or projection.
It's a last minute thought, isn't it? After they do all their other planning. Yeah.
It's just like, okay, I can turn on this much money. Great. Without the insight of, how does this impact me the rest of my life? How does this impact my spouse?
Right.
How does this impact the overall dollar amount I could receive? Should I be taking other assets before I take my Social Security, because it's a better taxed money? A lot of people don't think about that, right?
Right.
It's a lower tax, cost of living adjusted source of income compared to 401ks and IRAs. So when should I take it out on the timeline? That's something to think about. That's something to model. So all those things to say is, if I can, and I didn't mean to get on the soapbox here, you can tell this is one of my topics, but spend some time with it.
Yes. Well, you gave a lovely example. Last week we had a discussion about a client that you had, that she was a surviving spouse and had been widowed for years and didn't realize that she qualified for this, and was able to make those changes, and it changed her life by getting educated.
Yeah, by knowing the rules. That was an example of a survivor benefit. By knowing the rules, this lady was in a situation that once she learned the rules, she tripled her income and went from a very tough situation where she was really struggling emotionally, physically, and financially to okay.
Right.
And sometimes okay is a big deal. And what really struck out with that is she was able to do that by knowing the rules and knowing what she's eligible for. And what really stuck with me with that is she told me, she said, Beau, if I didn't learn the rules that applied to me, all credit to her. She came out, sought out the information. If she didn't learn these rules, she would have gone the rest of her life struggling and been part of that statistic of leaving $3.24 trillion on the table that people are eligible for.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Just a beautiful example.
So important decision. And, some of the research I've been seeing, and you're talking about the Secure Act 2.0.
Yes.
The potential proposal of even moving Social Security back even further for forever, full retirement age since 1935 till more recently was 65 years old. Most of your parents, that was their full retirement age.
Mm-hmm.
For everybody watching this, it's between 66 and 67. So here's the deal. So what, 1935 till now, how much longer are people living
right
to have just moved it a couple of years? Right. So I don't think this idea, the proposal is talking about moving it all the way from 60. We went from 65 to full retirement age being 66 to 67. And the proposal is saying, okay, let's knock it back all the way to 68.
Mm-hmm.
Couple things. One, the purpose of Social Security has really changed over the years, meaning it was truly created to help people not be indigent and poor and in old age, right?
Right.
But very few people lived age 65 to need that service. Now people are living until their mid 80s, mid 90s and beyond, and they're drawing on this benefit as their major source of income for 20, 30 years sometimes. So it shifted. So the idea of them shifting it a year to keep it viable for another block of time, I think it really should happen anyway. Right. I think it's past time for it to happen. So does that really change your life if your full retirement age shifts from 67 to 68? Mm-hmm. Not tremendously. Now, the concern of the benefit going away, and we're looking at some of the statistics.
There are some concerns of the benefit going away. Does it put back? Does that help keep those funds there longer? Are there other options?
Mm-hmm. More people worried about running out of Social Security. In 2021, 59%. This year, 63%. Increasingly more expressed concerns about market volatility impacting their level of retirement income. Understandably, 2021 is 56%. This year, it's 66%. Of course, right? We're in a bear market right now. Over a third of adults, 36%, said COVID has impacted their retirement plans. I was doing a piece earlier this week, Amy, on this, and it talked about a large percentage of people changed their retirement plans because of the pandemic.
Yes.
And what I was thinking when I heard that statistic, okay, it makes sense. Some people are having to work longer. And that was a big chunk of the statistic. People were having to work longer and readjust their retirement plan. Mm-hmm. But there was also a subset of that actually what changed their retirement plan was they retired sooner.
They left earlier, right?
Happened? They were laid off, right? They were laid off. They didn't have opportunity. Sometimes when you're laid off towards the end of your career, it's hard to get back into the workforce at that level.
Oh, sure. Imagine.
So major shifts there. More plan to file for Social Security early because of COVID, up from 9% to 14%. So there's a lot of concern around, because again, the core process or one of the initial processes of retirement planning is your income plan and making sure that you're in a position you have enough income or assets to create income that lasts as long as you do. And it's natural that in a down market, it creates more concerns. But what we want to be careful of is shooting ourselves in the foot, right? Is okay, my investments are down, so I want to take Social Security early. So it's kind of a double whammy there. Right? You're decreasing one benefit because another asset is down. So again, a lot of those, if it feels like it's a decision based in some kind of emotion, let's look at data, let's look at math, and let's create a strategy, and let's model viable scenarios. And when I say that, it's Okay, here's your things. Here's your model, your timeline to hit that goal that are possible. Retire at 64, 65, 66. That's in the window to hit your goal, or take Social Security at those ages. We can model that. Should I take my assets first from a 401k or delay that till later? Should I take my Social Security early? Should I use distributions from cash?
Right.
Let's model those scenarios. And we might need to model 3, 4, 5 different scenarios.
Evaluate.
Right. And look at it and take some time, understand the rules that apply to you, and make the best decision possible.
Right.
And if I have anything to do with it, Amy, I've taught the class on optimizing Social Security over 200 times now. I have no idea how many times I've talked about it online like this, but I'm hoping that it has an impact in that statistic, in that 4% nailing the decision or getting it right. And because what I find is that disconnect of readily available information, if somebody will spend a little more time, make the best decision possible, a lot of households, it's 70, 80, 100,000, $200,000 or more of income that you and your family get to use over your life. It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. And I love your point about not being reactive in this decision-making process, but evaluating, getting the information first. It's worth it starting today, not reactive.
That's it. And if you're concerned about your full retirement age being pushed back, we model it. Maybe your full retirement age does get pushed back to 68. We can model taking it at 67. It might make sense. It might work. Or we might need to delay. We'll see. We're living longer. We're working longer. We're healthier. So it is natural for this, because what it does by us delay, every time the benefit's delayed, it keeps the system viable and intact for another period of time. Mm-hmm. And that's why these incremental changes, that's why the thresholds go up for how much you earn. That the thresholds go up for how much a person earns that pays into Social Security. When that goes up, it keeps billions of dollars in the system, keeps it viable for another period of time.
Right.
When we move the full retirement age back, same thing. Mm-hmm. So what I'm looking for is those incremental changes, checking the data, that those are being done to keep this system viable, and not making emotional decisions for fear that the benefit's going to go away or not be there. And one thing to remember is Generation X and the baby boomers, they're really larger demographic than most people give them credit for. Mm-hmm. And they fund a good 76% of the baby boomers' Social Security benefit from their working and paying into Social Security. That's not talked about. That's not sexy enough or skilled enough to talk about. Either somebody actually still covering a big piece that's working today.
Yes.
So I think the message is happy birthday, Social Security. Thank you. You've been a big support, a big help for this country in retirement and old age. And do changes need to be made? Yes, they have to be. We get to where it's as normal to live to 100 as it is 85 today. One day, It's got to change, and it's got to adjust. And what we can do is we can do a better job making good decisions. Where does it fit in as far as how do we navigate taxes? Because again, there's certain things you can do with Social Security that are tax planning. That might sound different. Right. Two different animals, but when you take Social Security, what assets you draw, what is your provisional income, all those things determine the taxes you pay long-term.
Right, which shows your actual income.
That's right. It's the money you and your family get to use and spend.
Exactly.
And the best retirement strategy, or when I say the most efficient, is the strategy that gives you and your family as much of your money to use and spend as possible. Because remember, $1 million in an IRA might be $600,000 or $500,000, depending, right? So it's that net money that you and your family get to use and spend. So again, happy birthday, Social Security.
Today we've tackled inflation, recession, and Social Security, and somehow you've managed to have us feeling better, and I'm smiling. So
well, I hope it's better.
That's where education is power.
The reality is it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? There's some work to do, but if you'll do some work, we'll get a better result, right? And if we'll be proactive, we'll get a better result. And if we'll focus on the things we can control, we'll get a better result. And I had a conversation about this earlier, Amy, today, is that when we get too focused on what's happening politically, guess what? The political environment's happening to all of us. not much we can do necessarily other than vote. That's something we could do. The weather, our health, those things happen. Um, and what determines the outcome, the economy, the bear market, is our response to that. Are we controlling the things we can control? Are we blaming and complaining things outside of our control? And where it's really bad is if our energy is going to focusing on things outside of our control to the detriment of us doing the things we can control.
Right.
Right. And when it comes to retirement planning, that's being proactive, having a strategy, nailing the Social Security decision, talking about the scary words, and the exciting stuff. Let us know what lights you up and what's fun in retirement. I was talking with Amy before the show. I said, I want to get some ideas of what people's bucket list, their dream things, their rich life retirement looks like. And if I can get you out there to do it, I'm going to. But if not, I'm going to go do it and then really encourage you to get out there. So, Amy, you up for bungee jumping next
maybe not the bungee, but there's a lot on the list that I'm willing to tackle. So
okay.
We're going to start next week talking to an amazing couple about having a fantastic life after 50 and how to perfect your golf game and also your health and well-being in retirement.
Love it. Looking forward to that. And that's the talking and interacting with a real couple living their definition of a rich life in retirement. So exciting.
Yes.
So guys, that's really, I think the gist. I think we accomplished a lot today, Amy.
I think so too. And I'm exhausted. I hope everyone took notes.
Yeah, it's a heavy economy type of season we're in. But again, let's talk about it. Let's have conversations and let's get clarity. And that can do a lot to kind of decrease the emotion, decrease the chance of making decisions that we wish we didn't. Right. And we're here for you. If you want us to lighten it up, say, hey guys, quit talking about the scary words. Let's talk about something fun. Let's talk about cooking in retirement. Let's talk about going to Italy. Let's talk about living abroad. Let me know what you want to hear about. That's what we're here for. We'll pull it into the show because the retirement resource is very intentional because I want this the place that you can ask for, you can come to, you can go to get the things that you're looking to or you care about or you want to know more about. That's my job. That's my role. Me and Amy are here to serve you. Yes. And we'll see you next week. Same time, same place, right here on the Retirement Resource.